Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Nishant, Community Manager at India IT 360, and it's my pleasure to welcome everyone on today's session. From AI Curious to AI Ready, a practical playbook for techies. For more such insight-worthy sessions and the latest updates from the tech community, use our IT 360 Connect app. Simply scan the QR code shown on the screen and download the app to get started. On this app, you can get latest updates on tech, get early access to our exclusive webinar series, and network with leading IT CXOs. So, without any further ado, I'm honored to welcome our speaker, Mr. Karthik Chandrakant, SVP, Head of Data Science and AI at Marshalls, a seasoned leader who is also a TEDx speaker, the author of AI Essentials, and an ex-Amazon. We are glad to have you with us, Karthik. Before we begin, a few quick notes. We will have a Q&A segment in the end. Please feel free to drop your questions in the chat box throughout the session. Over to you, Karthik.
All right, thank you. Very quickly, I'll introduce myself, and then I would like to understand a little bit about the participants that have joined in as well. So what we'll do is, let me quickly introduce myself first. Before that, as Nishant mentioned, I head the data science and AI for Imarticus Learning. Primarily, I've been in this domain for the last 14 years. Started my career with Mu Sigma as a data scientist, and then joined Amazon. Spent about half a decade at Amazon, working with retail pricing analytics team, solving global business machine learning problems, and then also heading the Australia and New Zealand Alexa Knowledge AI. And currently, I work with Imarticus, where I've been here for about 4.5 years. Built a large team of data science practice, right from training, delivery, operations, and corporate relations. Right, so that's a little bit about what I do. And as Nishant also mentioned, I've recently published a book on AI called AI Essentials, which is out on the publisher's site as well as on Amazon. How AI can help in each of our careers, right? So I see a lot of AI in education. Okay, perfect. I think I've got an understanding of the kind of audience we have. What we'll do is for the next, we have another 45 odd minutes, right? Engineering background. Okay, great. We have the next 45 minutes. What we'll structure is we'll utilize this time to kind of run you through a little bit of context setting to helping you understand how we can get each of us from AI curious to AI ready, right? And primarily for that, there's a structured approach. Having been in the domain for about 1.5 decades, what I can say is this space is evolving rapidly, right? And there's some method to madness that we can put, and that's an effort that I would like to share in the next 30 odd minutes or so. And then the last 5 to 10 minutes, we'll definitely spend time on Q&A. With that in place, let me share my screen. Just give me a moment. Cool. So as today's topic mentions, I think everybody in today's world is talking about AI. There's not a single person, be it a 6-year-old or a 60-year-old. Everybody can definitely talk about something about AI today for sure, right? Now, how many of them use it? How many of them build AI? That's a different story. But everybody's literally talking about AI, right? And that's exciting. That's the exciting times that we all live in. And therefore, from a lot of them are very curious about it. Some of them know what it does, but don't know how to build things or don't know how to use. Some of them know how to use, but don't know how to build. So there's some approach to that, which we will talk so that we can get everybody AI ready. And that's one of the goals that I kind of had envisioned a couple of years ago. And in order to support that, I authored a book, which you can see on the screen, which is called AI Essentials. Which is basically to build AI literacy globally, right, into something more practical, outcome-driven work. In for today's agenda, right, what I'll quickly run through is how should the future mindset be in terms of for the AI future. You might have heard of a lot of things around AI native, AI first approach, AI first. Curriculum, AI first campuses now. There's so many things that is going AI first in terms of everything, right? So the mindset is something that needs to clearly have a different approach. We'll look at how AI is transforming today's career. I saw a lot of people from the educational background as well, final years or pre-final years. So we'll talk a little bit about that. I'll also talk about a little more on the skills that actually matter in AI, and how do you kind of there are different routes or paths which you can choose so that you can eventually end up, because the domain is so vast, right? And then how do you build like a very clear action plan? And lastly, it could get very overwhelming in some cases. So how can you avoid some of these mistakes when you embark on the AI journey today, right? So that's the high level agenda that I have in plan. Just a second. All right. Cool. I'm keeping the chat window on my side because there'll be a lot of questions that'll come your way. Okay. Um, okay. So even before that, here I just want to kick it off with what are some of the top trends, right? Every year we see an evolving, emerging trend. And I've been seeing this very, very closely since 2012. And therefore, there's a very clear evolution of AI that we'll talk about as well. But some of the top trends, because we're today in mid of 2026 almost, right? A lot of the whole of 2025 was a year of agentic AI, and we've built so much more on that. And in today's world, there's so much that's happened, especially especially after the journey of Gen AI that kind of kicked out post COVID, I would say largely, right? Of course, the research was much behind that, but post COVID, we saw a boom in Gen AI tools primarily, and that's when I feel AI literally had a face, and a lot of commoners started interacting with AI, which otherwise would have been practically possible with only perhaps practitioners, right, who would build these models and kind of experiment with it before pushing it out for prod. So that kind of gave a rise to the entire Gen AI framework. And through that, the evolution in the last couple of years or more, now we've reached a framework where literally agents can take over and do things in a very, very autonomous way. Of course, keeping the right human in the loop, but that's one big trend that's picking up, and it will continue to grow, right? The second thing is tool-based AI to decision-making assistance in an autonomous way, where you're no longer just interacting with AI, but you're actually building systems which can make decisions for you, right? That's the second thing. And the third one is around multimodal capabilities. I'm sure everybody understands today what multimodality is, where your input and output forms of data is just not text or a single form of audio or images or video, but it could be multimodal. And you folks are seeing that today as well, where when ChatGPT first came out, you saw how it could be only a text to text as an input and text as an output. Now you're seeing text as an input, image as an output, or elements where text is an input, video as an output, while audio as an output, right? This thing is here to stay, and this is the way the entire AI spectrum will develop. A lot of multimodal capabilities is how the AI first world will think, and not just in a hey, build a chat interface or build something where you can only text something, right? So multimodal capabilities is becoming the bare minimum for every AI solution that you're building out, or at least not if not on day one, but at least through the journey of building these AI products, these capabilities find very, very sharp inroads to the development cycle. And last one that I had on here, of course, there are many more, but in the interest of time, I've just picked the top 4 or 5 enterprise AI co-pilots, right? I think a lot of companies today, I'll take all those questions. If you have questions, please feel free to put in the chat window, but I'll definitely answer them at the end, right? We'll slot out 10 minutes for sure at the end, okay? Thanks, Dinesh, for the question there. Cool. The last one that I was talking about was in terms of enterprise AI co-pilots. You must have seen the entire elements of Microsoft Copilot coming into play, but not just that was just one big one from Microsoft, right? But every individual firm today or enterprise level are building their own co-pilots, ensuring the context is sitting within their ecosystem and it is not going out to the cloud or anywhere outside, right? So co-pilots are here to stay and will continue building a lot of things around it. So I think these are some of the emerging trends. If we were talking last year, we would have spoken so much more about Gen AI related elements, but we moved past that. I mean, it's there, it will continue, but the framework is moving a large spectrum of it towards the entire agentic AI setup, right? So in this kind of a setup or in this kind of a world, what are some of the myths, which is AI means only coding only, right? Or it's for coders only. And the second one around AI will replace everybody. I clearly want to talk about how these are just myths, and that's why these are the two most common myths that are out there. AI is not just coding only, but you can leverage AI without writing codes in today's world, right? I'm sure people here might have heard of Cursor AI, the likes of Codex, Cloud Code, and so on and so forth, right? Where coding has become a lot more easier, where you don't have to really write your lines of codes, but prompting becomes very, very important. And the other one being AI will replace everybody. That's not true. AI will replace that repetitive set of tasks, but not necessarily all the people, right? But the way I look at it is AI will enable you to do a lot more complex things on the pyramid of doing complex tasks as you evolve. With AI, you'll be able to move up the ladder and solve more complex things, and that's where you need to work with AI. And the ones who perhaps the question is not AI will replace everybody. The question is how can you become irreplaceable, right? That's the agenda that each of us should be thinking. And in order to get to that, what kind of skill sets should you have? And that's the question, the $1 million question that people are asking today, which is how can you become irreplaceable in the world of AI? There are very specific things you can do, and that is what essentially I'll structure some of the thoughts around that as well in the upcoming slides. Here's a very simple representation of how AI evolved, right? And most of the newer generation set of things that are coming out feels like this is the way AI is, but I just want to take a moment to kind of talk about the evolution started much before, right? The first time the term AI was coined was back in the 60s and 70s. Most of your research papers, if you go through today, I've published a bunch of papers, and most of these, the core concepts are coming from the papers from the 60s and 70s or 80s at max, right? And that is when the evolution kind of started in terms of research. And when the first time the computers came in, people were starting to do a lot of transactional data getting stored in flat files, in Excel files, kind of a setup. And then in the 90s and early 2000s, when the dot-com revolution happened, a lot of cloud setup came into play, a lot of business intelligence. On top of this data, we were able to store data, able to make sense out of data, and what we call as descriptive analytics. Early 2000s were business intelligence. Even back when I was in college, I did my engineering from Harvard College of Engineering. One of the subjects that was taught to me during my engineering career was business intelligence and warehousing, right? So those were the days when it got really picked up steam post like the 2005s onwards. And thereafter, people started not just building dashboards using Tableau, or now you must be very familiar with Power BI. People wanted to build some predictive analytics, diagnostics, why something happened. The descriptive analytics is what happened. Let's say sales reported, let's say in a retail context, the sales of a particular brand was a few thousands of dollars. It's just describing it, right? Why did the sales go up or low? If it went low, why did it go low, right? That's where the entire diagnostics, the entire predictive capabilities of how you build your machine learning models for forecasting, for probabilities, and then kind of predict the future. My sales were about a few $1,000s this month. What will it be the next quarter, the next month, and the next year? Those kind of things came into play with a lot of machine learning algorithms coming into play, and cloud becoming an infra which a lot of people migrated towards. So from there, the entire prescriptive analytics came into play, and semantics, natural language processing, NLP, computer vision, and then the evolution through deep learning and Gen AI, large language models, right? So this is how the kind of entire structure has gone through, and this is probably the most exciting time in the world of AI today because of the pure volume and the volume of data that we handle, and the degree of variation and complexity levels that we're dealing with is just mind blowing, right? Um, Moving further, here's just a simple glimpse. I just wanted to give you a glimpse of, hey, there are hundreds and hundreds of algorithms out there in the market, and you probably will not use most of them, but you'll definitely use some of them in your problem-solving journey as a data scientist or an AI engineer. And in today's topic, which was how do you kind of transition, I'll get to that, but I just want to mention that what is very important is not about all of these algorithms, but when do you use what kind of algorithm becomes the most important thing for solving a business problem, right? Trust me, in the industry, 80% of the problems kind of get solved. It's either a regression problem or it's a classification problem, talking in a pure ML way. And therefore, it's very important for you to know in what kind of business scenario should I use which algorithm, right? That's where the art of understanding the entire AI and the machine learning framework becomes very, very important, which is purely based on your problem statement and the data that you have. So how is now very specific to this is where the core of today's webinar, which was around, how do you kind of transition, or if you're at a certain point of your career where you're today doing completely nothing AI related, or you're doing something AI related, but you don't really know the underlying, how do you build it, right? You're probably doing some bit of prompting. But let's say if you're doing a lot of hands-on AI stuff, but how do you move to the next level, right? That's what I will be structuring the next 10, 15 minutes around. So how is AI changing careers today? Back in those days, when we had to build a regression model, we had to write thousands of lines of code to get to that, right? Today, this is not even like you don't even have to write that line of code. You just prompt it, and in two simple lines, and you have the entire algorithm and the pipeline ready. So work is becoming a lot more AI assisted. People are expecting faster output. You must have seen if back in the days when deck making would take a few days or sometimes even weeks. Today it's a matter of a few minutes, right? Applications like Gamma AI, Gamma.app will literally, you dump the prompt, you dump the context, and you have a beautifully looking deck in a matter of 2-3 minutes. Today, honestly, I don't spend more than 5 minutes for deck making. So it has really made outputs much faster. The skills has shifted, and I'll talk a little more about this a little later. People are no longer looking at just your technical skills, but there's a lot more about it. How can you solve a business problem if you were given using the entire AI gamut of tools? And how do you kind of articulate, communicate, and validate becoming very, very important in today's world. The hiring changes are very prominent. The world of certifications, the world of all of those are there, but proof of work is becoming a lot more crucial, and people want to see tangible outputs of you having done something when it comes to hiring. And lastly, adaptability, right? Every role today needs or has an AI component. How do you kind of work with that closely and deliver outcomes is becoming very, very crucial in today's world with heavily infused AI in your work streams and workflows. So taking two steps back, what is the world of AI or data science or machine learning, whatever you want to call it, but the larger umbrella is data science for sure, which is sitting right in the crux of it. The three broad pillars, right, which you need to be fundamentally decently good with is what I'd say. not the good news today is you don't have to come from a computer science background only to do this, right? It has gotten so very well democratized that even somebody from a non-STEM background or people from diverse backgrounds can today hop onto the journey of AI. What do I mean by that? So today, three pillars that are very important in this survival, which is you need to be good with elements of coding. And today you can do that with a lot of, people talk about vibe coding. People can simply prompt and get your necessary codes. But the fundamentals are still here to stay, right? The fundamentals of, I'm sure you would have learned your data structures and algorithms, the entire core concepts of DSA, object-oriented programming, all of those would help. But today, even without that, you can survive in this space, right? So the aspects of coding becomes one big chunk. The aspect of math and statistics becomes the next big pillar, where a lot of these business problems that come needs to be translated into a statistical or a mathematical problem, and then you solve it by using the entire um, um, uh, algorithms out there, and then you bring back the business layer, right? So that's the entire math and statistics to your right. And then the bottom half is the entire understanding of the domain. If you're solving a business problem in let's say telecom, it becomes very important for you to understand how the telecom industry works. Let's say if it is BFSI, right, or even for that matter, healthcare and life sciences. Those terminologies of how the biological life sciences work becomes very important for you as an AI engineer or a data scientist to be aware of. So therefore, these three things today needs to come together under a single umbrella, and that is how the nature of work also gets defined in some of the roles that I'll talk about. So, what do organizations in today's world look for from an AI point of view, right? Back in those days, it was primarily these three things, which is a whole lot of what I talked in the previous slide: math, business, and technology. People look for your statistical thinking, people look for your technical acumen and the domain knowledge. But those are the data scientists of the past. What people are today looking at is all of this plus a heavy dose of you being able to prompt engineer, write exact prompts through which you can build a lot of, let's say, Gen AI pipelines to clean your data, to do a lot of things before your machine learning algorithms take over, right? A lot of creativity, innovation, being curious, inquisitive is something that people check for. And then lastly, what's very important is the whole problem solving mindset using AI, right? AI is not needed in every problem solving journey, but if there is a need, how do you use it? How do you think of the entire architecture? How do you think of the entire tech stack? And how do you also consider the entire interactions of data between different layers? So the entire problem solving mindset of, because trust me, during this journey you'll encounter a lot of challenges and problems. So this mindset of how do you solve, what is your approach going to be, how do you bring in AI first methodologies, right? All of those becomes very, very important in today's hiring cycle, especially when people look for this. Now you understand what the market is looking for, right? And that's where what becomes very important is how do you prepare yourself for that, right? And what are the different tracks through which you can get there? I know each of you might have certain different levels of interest through which you would want to, pursue a career in data science, AI, or so on and so forth. But even before that, let me ask a simple question: how many of you here understand what the word FDE stands for? I'll put that on chat if need be. How many of you understand what an FDE role is? You must have definitely heard of what an SDE is, right? Software development engineer. But what if you're hearing it for the first time? I'm happy to explain. But there's a big world of FDE that stands for forward deployed engineers, where this is introduced by the worlds of the Palantirs, where the roles now no longer need it's like a think of it as a mix of a software developer engineer, an AI engineer. Yeah, I think there's a very good response as well. It's a generalist role and the consulting, right? where you need to understand the best practices of the consulting world, the best practices of a software developer, and the best practices of an AI engineer as well, right? These things coming together, becoming very, very crucial in today's next gen applications that people are building or enterprises are building. So, therefore, while that can be like the Uber thought process of getting there, but there can be a very simplistic way of getting started today, right? Today, there are 3 or 4 different tracks that can take you on the journey of career paths that are very close to or within the AI spectrum. The first one is an AI enabled professional, right? You're not necessarily coding day in, day out, but you must have seen hundreds of reels today or hundreds of YouTube shorts which talks about different kinds of AI tools in the market which can help you do certain very specific set of things, right? Like, let's say you use a tool like Canva for deck making, or a Gamma app for deck making, or you use let's say VO for video content generation in marketing world, or let's say you want to write better creative scripts, you use the world of Claude and GPT and whatnot, right? Um, yeah, I'll take up those questions. But yeah, all I'm trying to say is you're a professional doing your marketing or your finance or your operations or whatever you're trying to do, but you're an AI enabled professional, meaning you are using AI tools to apply these into your specific domain, not necessarily doing a lot of coding, or you might do no or low code, but you're enabled with AI, right? That's also a good starting point for people who are not. So that's one. The second track is a lot of where you're getting access to data, where you're working with data, the data what I call it as a data analytics track, where you're working with data, building dashboards, building insights, reporting, all of that, which needs a little bit of coding, a little bit of business understanding, and a little bit of math for sure, right? And this is where if somebody who's interested in problem solving and understanding the data better, this path can perhaps take you through the entire data analytics journey. The next one is a little more complex, which becomes the AI ML builder or the AI engineer or the data scientist track as such, where you build machine learning and AI models day in, day out, where you're building Gen AI pipelines, where you're doing data engineering. This needs a little heavy dose of coding, good programming skills, and good technical skills overall, right? And this can perhaps take you through the journey of a AI engineer or an ML engineer in the third track, which is the AI ML builder track. And the fourth one is more of building, in order to build AI products or AI first product, focus on solving business problems using AI, right? So today you must have seen there are different tools which does very specific thing for a particular to solve a business problem, right? A lot of them are stitching together workflows, or they're building orchestration layers to solve a very specific segment in the whole AI spectrum. So if you're people who are interested in building products or building solving business problem by not through the services but building a product and implementation of it, or some bit of the entire business analytics world as well comes into play here, where you're working very closely with the tech team to kind of drive the entire AI product roadmap, right? Or the think of it as a AI product management kind of a role, where you need to focus on strategy, where you need to focus on requirements, implementation, being very, very agile, working with the tech team closely to do that. So there are many other tracks, right? But I just wanted to, in the interest of to keep it very simple, these are the 4 different tracks which can start with very simple no code to a high code, or a extremely heavy on coding to something which is a combination to something which is low, right? So it really, I would I keep telling this story to a lot of people. When I joined Mu Sigma back in 2012, one of the things that I was very sure of was I did not want to become like a full-blown software developer or be coding 24/7. So therefore, I chose this track of data science at that point of time, which involved coding, of course, but it also involved a lot of math and a lot of problem solving, which gave me the real kick of solving business problems, right? So that was my personal interest. And I'm sure a lot of you must have been pushed into a certain kind of an industry because of whatever reasons, but you still have an option today in which specialized way your AI career could be, right? And this was never the case back at least 10 years ago or before that. It would just get started whichever problem you're solving and you would pick an interest. But now there is very specific domains that have been carved out within the entire AI world, which can run based on your backgrounds and interests, right? So I would strongly suggest you to first identify your interest in one of these tracks and kind of go deeper from there. Now, how do you do that is the next question which many people have. But even before that, I just want to, before going to how do you do that, these are just a snippet of different kinds of roles on career opportunities in AI. And in order to get to that, you need to first become AI ready as well, right? So each of these tracks, the previous one that I talked about, leads into specific roles of this kind, right? It could be a data scientist, data analyst, data engineer, machine learning engineer, business analyst, AI engineer, NLP engineer, BI analyst, architect, statistician, so on and so forth. These are just the top, I would say, 10 roles put out there. There are many, many such, right? And on the right-hand side is it's a research done by Ematicus and Analytics India magazine a couple of years ago, where we talked about the different data science jobs per sector. Every sector needs it. There's not a single sector or domain today where AI is not needed, right? You can see the highest level of adoption in the bottom donut chart, where BFSI is a domain, the banking, financial services, and insurance, about 26-27%, followed by e-commerce, energy, retail, healthcare, media, automobile, telecom, you name it, every domain has a chunk in that pie, right? So the bottom line is very clear. Every industry, every domain needs AI today. Not just industries and domain, but even people who are creating content today, right? Even so much of AI is used there. So literally, what I'm trying to tell you is it's there everywhere, and it'll continue to only grow from here, right? So make sure the opportunity that's out there is something that you're very clear in terms of grabbing. Now, if your question is, hey, how do I get to that, right? What should be my approach in getting to the AI? Like I said, you might be in different parts of your journey where you could be, you're already starting there, you've already learned certain things, but you want to get there. But I'm just trying to put a small career compass in the AI era, right? If you're a beginner or if you're at an intermediate level, what should you do? So short term, for starters, I think what's very important is you should build the core data science fundamentals, right? While it is very, very important, or while you feel the entire Gen AI layer can do the job, it sure can. But understanding the data science fundamentals will give you more superpowers of doing things differently, right? In a data science or an AI world, there's just not one way of solving a business problem. No, it's multidimensional. So understanding these fundamentals will really give you the horsepower to solve complex problems way differently. Second thing is, like I told you, not just understanding your prompting game, but understanding the large language model familiarity, right? From the GPTs of the world, the ChatGPT, OpenAI's, Claude, and Gemini, and so on and so forth, and a bunch of open source llamas, Quens, all of those. It's very important for you to understand the large language model infrastructure, how people use it, the entire world of tokens, because you could, if you're a student today, you will be experimenting it with a few things. But what's very important in the enterprise world is cost, right? There are a lot of reports coming out now which talks about how people are going back out of AI, from AI to manual ways, because it's costing them a bomb, right? In which means not everybody is going to run away from it. It will continue, but people will now start thinking of more cost optimized way of using AI, which means there's a whole stream of token optimization so that you can use your AI far more cost effectively. So understanding the familiarity of how these things work on the ground level to understanding the entire transformer architecture is something that you should focus on short term. And then the last bit is, like I talked about, the entire prompting, prototyping, and packaging. You should be familiar with building your own set of small prototypes or MVPs, understanding maybe even with white coding or using tools like Cursor AI or any other tool, but understanding how to kind of get things end to end out there, right, is important. So your short term goal should be focusing on building these. When I say short term, I'm talking about 30 to 40, 45 days kind of timeline, right? Or maybe 60 days at max. From a medium term point of view, which is more like 2 months to about like 4 to 5 months, you should definitely try and pick a specialization if possible. I personally specialize in, let's say, for example, and for me that came through working in different companies that happened, right? I worked with my initial stint was with Musicma, where I worked with multiple clients like the Walmarts of the world, the Pfizers of the world from healthcare. So I got a good mix. But then later, my journey with Amazon gave me like a deep expertise in pricing analytics and NLP in the e-commerce world, right? And then I spent a little bit of time solving problems in the healthcare domain as well. So it's important that you try and go deeper into some kind of specialization so that you can get the maximum out of it. And then what you should also do is learn to deploy some of the MVP tools that you build on right from Apply or to Streamlit to whichever that you are comfortable with. But deploying these tools and getting them on your GitHub profiles, building a very strong online presence on LinkedIn, GitHub, and blogs like Medium. But building that presence around, hey, you know your stuff well, right? So that when the time of recruitment or hiring comes, you're ready way before that and not the day before that. And lastly, from a long-term point of view, when I say long-term, I'm talking about like a 6 months to a 12 months kind of a timeline where you have solved diverse set of problems across different domains. You've built some level of specialization. You're able to contribute to the open source community, and you use AI as a partner and not just as a tool, right? How do you use AI to kind of solve any business problem that's thrown at you will be the question that tomorrow's recruiters will be looking at. So that's largely like the high level plan. Now, in order to go a little more detail, this seems a little high level. What I would suggest each of you to kind of do is, I'm sure you're using AI tools today, no doubt in that, but make it a habit to use the latest emerging tools and technologies in the AI world, because it will end up shaping how people work and people think as well. Pick one kind of a career direction or within the 4 parts. Of course, you can evolve into a lot more with time, but for starters, I would suggest pick one and go deeper into it, right? If you thoroughly enjoy coding, then perhaps the AI, the data analytics track, or the AI ML builder track is important. If you're interested in not so much of coding, the first one or the fourth one where you look into the business analytics stream, something like that. So it's important you align it with your passion, right? And then in the next 3 to 4 weeks, I would strongly urge you to pick up small little projects, or there are different kinds of hackathons and stuff which you should participate in and get a sense of real world business problems that you solve. And then lastly, make sure you're documenting all of this, right? Your GitHub profiles tell a lot of things to the recruiters. It's a sign of how hands-on you are. It's a sign of where you stand, not just GitHub, but even if you're using things like LeetCode, HackerEarth, HackerRank, it gives the recruiter a sense of what you've been doing in the last few months, right? And then with the most important aspect of continuous learning. Even for me, it's very important to stay close to this industry. So catching up on everything that's happening here becomes very, very important in the AI domain, right? So these are largely how I feel you should, from being AI curious to AI ready. Here's like the little more details, but what's very important is the entire continuous learning, because this domain is evolving rapidly than anybody is able to predict it. So with that, I'll just take one last slide where some of the common mistakes, which, if you know when you start early, it could help you save some time. Basically, in today's world, there's a lot of AI content that you can consume from, right? And it could get a little overwhelming, or you don't know where to start. So make sure you're not watching endless videos without building something, right? So pick a small area of interest, pick a topic, pick a domain, pick a problem statement, and kind of build things around it or solve things around it, and not just continuously watch videos and not do. Basically, keep it hands-on, right? The second thing which you should avoid is starting something too advanced. let's say, for example, you jump into transformers directly, right? Or you jump into a computer vision problem directly. But like I said, the evolution becomes very important where you understand data first, you understand how do you build simple dashboards to building predictive models to then going into something more NLP, computer vision, deep learning, and then large language models, right? So understanding the basics to the ML spectrum becomes important. Um, and then no real world practice, learning without applying them on problems, pick up problems. There are now a whole lot of data sets available globally on real world business problems here in India as well as the US sites. Pick up those problems and try and solve some of those real world problems that are thrown up on Upwork, Fiverr, or wherever, right? And then blind trust, accepting AI outputs as is. I think a couple of years ago, there was so much of chatter around the entire hallucination. But now AI is getting better for sure. But please be cognizant of the result that it throws. Just don't directly jump into the output that the AI gives. You'll have to build a lot of validation, verification, evaluation layers before you consume that data, right? And then lastly, not having a portfolio. You're doing so many things, but you're not documenting it anywhere, but you're just there. It's in your mind. That'll probably not help you when you're trying to switch careers or get into this domain. So employers and clients definitely look for validation, and building a strong GitHub repo is a good way to get started, right? Um, yeah, I think as you take off from here, I just want you to be very cognizant of the way you write your prompts. Definitely one simple prompt that you can take off is act as a the entire best practices of writing a prompt, where you give it a role, you give it the context and the output. The more specific you are to the AI, the better is your output. So I would suggest you know yourself better, right? I cannot tell any of you that here is what you should do, because you yourself know what you might want to do based on your interest. So, but pick some thoughts from the AI world for sure, where you can explore something like give it a career plan, or a 30-day, 60-day learning plan for AI, and see how you can work with that, right? And of course, I'm sure with time it'll only get better, and you will be able to ramp up sooner. Cool. So I don't, at this point, I think we are right on time, almost there. I just want to leave you with the thought of there must be a lot of chatter around AI is here to take your jobs and all of that. But please remember, AI won't replace you. Somebody using AI will, right? So it's very important for you to hop onto that journey of AI, specifically in terms of taking that action plan today, where you position yourself ahead. But what's very important is just start small, stay consistent, and try and understand it through a roadmap of understanding some fundamentals of data science and AI first, to solving business problems, to building a very strong portfolio for yourself, right? That should largely be your focus in the next 30 to 60 days. All right, so that's pretty much what I had in place today. Anything at all, I'm happy to kind of if you write to me about very specific problem statement, of course, I'd be happy to kind of have a chat around that. So thank you so much, and I'll leave you with. I'm happy to take up questions at this point. You can put it on the chat, and Nishant, if there's anything you want to add. But before I leave, like I said, here's the book that I'd authored, which is called AI Essentials, which is out on Amazon and on Vibrant Publishers. If you are interested, feel free to grab a copy. This has a lot of fundamentals which are put out there, and it will give you a good understanding for those who like reading per se. Some of them might like video content, some of them might like live sessions. I'm not saying this is what you should do. All I'm saying is, if you're interested in reading some fundamentals, this book is a journey where I've put together a lot of best practices of AI in a very simplistic manner. Right? It talks about introduction. It talks about machine learning concepts. It talks about deep learning, computer vision, Gen AI, and lastly, ethical AI as well. In today's world of AI governance, where people can literally build anything and everything, ethics and responsibility becomes very important. So I'll leave you with this. I can even put some of the links of the book on the chat. But at this point, I'm happy to take up questions if you may have any. And if anybody is interested, you can use the code Karthik11 on the Vibrant Publisher side, which I'll put the link on chat to get an extra 15% off on the book, right? Thank you so much. I think it was a pleasure talking to each of you. I'm happy to take up questions. Nishant, I'll see if you have anything to kind of pitch in here.
Thank you so much, Karthik. I see there are a lot of questions, so let's go for the enthusiastic questions.
All right, I'm happy to take up questions. Okay, there are quite a few questions from the top. I'll take it from there, right? One second, let me take. It would be. I think some of you have put some comments as well. One second, let me pick. If you have any new questions, you can feel free to put it. What should someone from a non-tech background do? I mean, it really depends on what your end outcome or your goal is, right? If you're interested to become like an AI engineer as such, that's a big journey. But if you're interested to become like a data analyst profile or a business analyst profile, which seems a lot easier for a non-STEM or non-tech background, realistically speaking, you should first start with like I said, understanding. I think in one of the slides that I put out there, understanding the fundamentals of data science and AI. Perhaps understanding the entire working structure of how do you maybe build dashboards, how do you solve simple problems, or even the aspect of business analyst, right, where you work with partner teams to different solving business problems. So I think somebody from non-tech background should first focus on understanding the fundamentals of the data science world. And maybe another easier way is looking at roles which are primarily heavy on prompt engineering, where you don't have to do a lot of coding, but you need to be good with prompting, right? And there's a big saying where today prompting is the or English is the new coding language. If you can write good English or prompt well, you can literally solve business problems today as well. So non-tech background people who are not so interested in coding could look at prompting, the journeys, the roles around that becomes very, very lucrative, I would say. Okay, so do you have any AI specific program specialist in healthcare as career? Okay, let me pick. There's some more questions on top. Sorry, the scroll is just going. How do you divide which tools to use for daily work, like for research, PPT? Okay, that's a good question, Varun. I'll tell you what I personally do, right? Like for example, ChatGPT gets creative, it's decent. But if I want to do some deep research, I definitely stick on go to Claude. The entire deep search helps really well. But if I want some deep search based on market data, local data, not on trained data, right? I would go to Gemini because they have the search engine enabled with Gemini is far more superior, I feel. It has a lot more latest data, a lot more ground data. So it's what I want to do, right? If I want to build PPTs, I would go to Gamma, GAMMA.ai, where you just dump your prompt context. And it really depends once you, and if I want to create some art, right, I use Midjourney. So this comes with you having explored a few tools, right? So it really depends on what is your task that you need to do. And I know which one works best for what. So therefore, I use that tool. So for your daily work, my simple suggestion is definitely to play around with Claude and Gemini and ChatGPT, because Claude doesn't give you images, right? GPT does, Gemini does. So I would toggle between platforms. But for deep research or research, I would stick to Claude and Gemini. And for PPTs, like I said, Gamma is there are some more tools, but I personally prefer Gamma. These are some of the high-level tools that I would use. There's another question which is asking 30-day roadmap to be AI ready. Honestly, 30 days is too small a time frame. I don't know, Nitin, what background you come from, but it depends, right? If you're from one of those domains, yeah, you can be. It's easier transition in a couple of months. But for 30 days as a roadmap, if that is your timeline, then I would strongly suggest, I would break it down into the first week going into understanding fundamentals of data science and AI, the core concepts of it, right? How does an algorithm work? What happens? And then you should also be fairly familiar with a little bit of Python coding, I would say, and a little bit of prompt engineering, right? So the first 7 to 10 days is to focus on these. Then the next 2 weeks, I would focus on solving diverse set of problems from different domains, building, let's say, a complexity level of 3, 4 problems, right? One which has dashboarding, a simple dashboarding using Power BI. The other one, we are building a simple predictive model to solve prediction of sales or prediction of death or whatever, right? Um, then comes a little more complex text data, natural language processing, or computer vision kind of problem statements as well, and then using Gen AI pipeline. So a problem statement mix the next 2 weeks of getting you a glimpse of everything, and then the last 5 to 7 days focusing on deployment, cloud, the entire how do you use the GCP, Azure, or an AWS setup to do that. So that would be my largely for freshers or whatever, wherever you are in your journey. If you need to get started, that would be the split for 30 days, is my take. Wins in the book costs, I think, 490 on Amazon, somewhere there, and 450 if you use that coupon code on Vibrant Publishers site. Yeah. I'll send a link shortly on the chat. Is Gen AI out of trend and will agentic AI? That's a great question. Look, when I started my career, nobody talked about AI. There was the word AI also was non-existential. I mean, it was there, but nobody said AI. We're building AI, right? People always said we are solving business problems using data science, using machine learning. So, if I were to take the last 14, 15 years, I'm very sure there'll be something new. I'll give you a little bit of example, right? When back in the 2015s, when big data was the buzzword, everybody said, "Hey, my solution, the product or the platform is big data. There's big data that we work on, and all of that, right?" Then came the entire machine learning. People even using simpler algorithms would all say we are building machine learning algorithms. So the 2017s and 18s were all era of that, and then came the whole in the 2020s and onwards the whole AI to then Gen AI post 2022, and in 2024 and 25s it was a lot of agentic AI. Currently, it is still that autonomous agentic AI agents, all of that is the right one, and soon it might be out of trend, not because we're not using it. It will become an underlying engine. There'll be something on top of it built, which will be the new thing, right? So that is exactly why understanding the fundamentals becomes important. I know a lot of people today think the whole Gen AI spectrum or the large language models is the only way of solving business problems. Absolutely not. Therefore, it becomes very important for you to understand the fundamentals, so you know many other ways of solving business problems, right? So tomorrow, even if Gen AI is out of trend, there's something else picking up. The fundamentals are here to stay, and that's where, as a practitioner, I keep telling people to understand the fundamentals a lot better. Yeah, hope that helps, Sujit. Ramesh has a question: do you offer any courses on AI for educators? I'm associated with Imarticus, so yes, of course, we have a lot of. I'm happy to, if you write to me, or you can explore the entire Imarticus website, imarticus.org, where you can look at the different courses. If you're interested, feel free to pick it up. Or I even, because I work with Amazon, I have some connects with the AWS world, where there are some setup where we work with, where I help AWS to kind of, if any of these, let's say, learners or college wants to pick up some free programs on the AWS side, those would be few things you could look at as well. But I don't have a course as such. Will AI create more expert? Bhargava has a question, or more dependency? That's a good question. That's a trick question. In fact, it's a bunch of both, I would say. But will it create more experts? To an extent, yes. But that really depends on how you use AI. But as of now, what I'm seeing in the current trend is AI has created more dependency rather than experts. I mean, the number of experts are also coming out because of the way they use it. but people becoming very, very dependent on AI to even do simple tasks is a little worrisome for me, because there's a big study that the MIT has put out where the cognitive abilities of humans dipping because of excessive usage of AI for anything and everything, where we're even forgetting to think simple things, right? So I would say in today's world, while there are experts getting created, but this the dependency is on the highest levels ever before. Implementing AI in metals and mining sector, not necessarily in metals and mining sector, Madhusudan, but I've worked with in one of my previous clients when I was working. We worked with uh, predictive maintenance in industries, and that was in the mining sector. So we built a bunch of IoT based solutions to kind of solve for that predictive maintenance of their machinery, right? Which could take away human lives. Previously there was some death that happened, so using some solutions, how AI can detect early failure and predictive maintenance of systems is something that I've worked with. I'm happy to chat. If you have any separate, you can write to me on LinkedIn. Happy to talk to you separately on that. Cool. I think we have a lot of questions that I'm hoping I've answered most of them. I know we are on time, and it's Sunday afternoon. I'll not hold up for longer. But before I leave, I'll just drop the link to the book, and if you're interested to kind of take a look at it, please. I'm happy to share both of these links here. You can, and this is the one on the Vibrant Publisher site where the coupon code would help. Okay, how AI would help to generate the leads? Okay, Swati, it really depends on which domain you're talking about. But AI is definitely used in lead, more than generating leads. How do you kind of nurture those leads and talk to those leads more often? And in recruitment, generate leads. Okay, can you give me a little more context of what do you mean by? Okay, Janet, you're saying in recruitment to hire better people. Is that your question? To search client and candidate both. Okay, cool. Of course, there are some platforms today where I've seen a lot of, but that's not to generate the leads, but that's more on once you have the leads, or once people apply, how do you kind of use better screening of the resume, better candidate is too expensive. Yeah, got it. I get your problem statement. Um, I've not seen platforms today, but I'm sure they exist. Like you said, people are monetizing to buy those uh, screening with AI. Yeah, screening with help of AI is something people are doing today. Even the initial rounds, the first rounds or the second rounds, are profiling, simple communication checks. Those are something that AI is doing today for recruitment world. Specifically, I've seen a lot of examples there. But in order to get the right sort of talent in, um, I've not seen platforms, but this requires some custom building and custom, reaching out based on pure NLP based things. Something on that sort can definitely is doable. But I'd be happy to take this separately, Swati, for sure. I would like to understand a little more of your problem statement, and I can suggest if there's something we could explore. Yeah, I put the links on the chat. All right. If there's no other questions, I think we can wind up here. Nishant, over to you. But thank you so much for listening to me on a Sunday afternoon. And I hope you have a great day and a great journey in your AI careers if you're either trying to get there or transitioning. But it was lovely talking to all of you, and have a good day and all the very best, folks. Thank you.
As we conclude today's session, a heartfelt thank you to Mr. Karthik and our super enthusiastic audience who stayed with us throughout the session. For more such sessions and latest updates from the tech community, use our IT360 Connect app. Simply scan the QR codes shown on the screen and download the app to get started. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you all for joining in.